This is the cold. Steely blue. Very quiet. Makes you shiver. Makes you want to hibernate. Depresses you. Sometimes the cold is loud, and the loudness makes the cold colder. Makes you take shelter. The cold is your constant enemy, and it can prevent you from doing your job. It can even kill you if you don't make it your ally and learn to cope with it. The most important person in cold weather combat operations is the leader. Here are 3 qualified leaders to give you their ideas on leadership in the cold. First is a corporal of the Royal Marines. He has spent the last 7 winters in Norway as a leader and an instructor.
Okay. Cold weather affects the way we think, all right? So therefore, it affects the way we act. It always takes longer to do things out here. It's time appreciation, all right? Just think about it. Right, pass the net across. Because of the intense cold, there is an awful tendency among junior leaders to look after themselves instead of their men. In cold conditions, it is essential that the leader looks after his men. For example, he does something that he might not have to do in another climate, and that is discuss the routine in the early morning to be certain that the section is fully prepared. He makes sure the men use the buddy system, where one man watches the face and checks the hands of another man. Out in the cold, a man can lose feeling and won't realise he's slowly beginning to get frostbite. Every man relies very much on his buddy out here, and the leader must make sure that this happens. I mentioned time appreciation. In a warm climate, you'll say to the Marines, right, get ready to move in 5 minutes. That doesn't happen here in quite the same way because everything takes a little longer in cold weather. For example, it takes half an hour to get a hot wet on. So a good leader must be able to take care of his men, must make sure that they can take care of themselves. They must be aware of time appreciation, and these things should be high on your list, okay?
Next is a Norwegian Army sergeant.
As far as the leader is concerned, he must take care of his men, but he must also see to it that they take care of themselves by teamwork. That's the buddy system. And when a leader is exhausted and has reached the limit of his endurance, the buddy system, teamwork, will support the leader and make certain he gets his fair share of rest, hot food and hot drinks. Otherwise, it will be impossible for the leader to carry on. Success in cold weather operations can only come with constant practice and experience in the field, in the cold.
Here is a U.S. Marine Corps captain. He conducts the cold weather leader course at their Mountain Warfare Training Center at Pickle Meadow, California.
Good leaders have certain traits in common. One is the commitment to do their absolute best at all times. For example, in the last few days, you've seen what kind of physical conditioning this altitude and weather demand. You must keep yourself as a leader in top shape so that you can accomplish the movement necessarily to properly plan and supervise in cold weather. How do you know all the ski bindings in your squad are good?
I personally checked them this morning, sir.
A good leader, when asked if all the bindings fit in his squad, can back up his answer by saying that he took his men out on a ski march and personally checked their bindings before, during, and after. A good leader leads by example. He does not ask his men to do something that he's not doing himself. A good leader is a professional. He knows his men, he keeps them informed, looks after their welfare, and keeps them active. Without hounding his men, the junior leader carefully supervises every task. making certain that the task at hand is understood and accomplished, especially the need to constantly check for frostbite and other cold weather injuries. The leader knows, too, that everything takes longer in the cold, and as a result, he plans and allows more time for every task. For the good leader, there is no question of priorities. First his men, then himself.
Survival in cold weather depends first on the will to survive, on the clothes you wear and how you wear them, the amount of water and the type and amount of food you consume, the rest and the sleep you get, your personal hygiene habits, and how you build a shelter when necessary. Most important, however, is your will to survive. The will to survive comes from knowledge, self-discipline, pride in yourself, and esprit de corps. This U.S. Marine Corps clothing has been especially designed and tested for cold weather warfare. The design takes into account your body's temperature regulating mechanism. Your skin has a fine network of small blood vessels which receive more blood when your body temperature rises. And when your body temperature rises, your skin moistens with perspiration. As the moisture evaporates, it takes heat away from your skin. This loss of heat reduces your body temperature. The first, or insulating layer in the clothing system, allows your body to retain this heat while allowing the moisture to evaporate. The moisture is wicked out, away from your skin. Additional layers of clothing will provide you with more insulation against the cold. Usually, the colder it is, the more layers you will wear. If you are too hot, you can take off a layer or two. And you can let cold air in between the layers to ventilate the excess heat. Try to remember the acronym C-O-L-D. C, clean clothes insulate. O, overheating comes of overdressing. L, loose and layered clothing permits better insulation and allows ventilation. D, keep your clothes as dry as possible. Moisture takes heat away from the body. Occasionally, you may have to dry a few damp items in your sleeping bag. The British Royal Marines use the sleeping bag to keep their leather boots from freezing. So that they are easier to put on when it is time to get up. One last item of clothing, your VB, or vapor barrier boots. They will keep your feet warm to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or to minus 51 degrees Celsius. The boots keep your feet so warm that they perspire, so you must change your socks as often as necessary to keep your feet dry, or risk foot injury. The Norwegians, Dutch, and the British have their own footwear and cold weather clothing. They use leather ski march boots. The Canadians use mucklucks. But they all subscribe to the insulate, layer, and ventilate principles. In very cold weather, the Norwegians, British, and Dutch use toe covers on their boots. The toe covers form another insulating layer on the feet and keep the boots clean and dry longer. When toe covers are used, you have to readjust the ski bindings, but this is no problem. In cold weather operations, the daily food intake is increased. Why? Because only a small part of what you eat is used for producing energy for physical work. Most of what you eat is burned to maintain your body heat. So in cold weather, you must have more calories. You must eat more to maintain your normal energy level. As for water, you need at least 4 liters a day and more if operating at altitude. Why? In cold weather and at altitude, your body loses liquid fast because you perspire heavily due to the extra hard work. This liquid has to be replaced, preferably with a hot wet, with sugar. The hot drink will warm your body, and the sugar will provide extra calories. Don't count on your body to tell you that you are thirsty, because the thirst mechanism shuts down in cold weather. Having enough water is usually a problem in cold weather. You must plan ahead to have enough. Water from a stream is easiest to obtain, but make sure it is properly treated before drinking. Next in preference is to melt ice chopped out of a frozen pond or lake. It produces more water in less time than snow. Plan 20 minutes to melt enough snow for a hot drink. An important detail to remember is that it requires a lot of fuel to melt snow and ice. Other sources of extra calories are your cookies and chocolate bars. But save them for between meals and when you're on the march. Alcoholic drinks cause a quick release of body heat to the skin surface, while lowering overall body core temperature. As a result, you get a false feeling of warmth. Alcohol assumes the temperature of the air around it without freezing. If consumed, serious injury may result. There is little to say to the fighting man about sleep and rest in cold weather, except that you must get as much sleep and rest as you possibly can. With regards to personal hygiene, face, hands, armpits, crotch, and feet should be kept clean. Stay in the tent for some time after washing, because washing, and especially shaving, removes natural oil from the skin, thus exposing bare skin to the cold. When possible, shave before going to sleep in order to give your face as much time as possible to recover. Teeth should be cleaned daily. It is normal in the cold to delay bowel movements. Make every effort to go regularly to prevent possible constipation. A section of soldiers are caught out in bad weather. They cannot proceed further and must have shelter. The leader decides to take the time to build a snow cave. A snowdrift is available. The right place to build is as high up on the slope as possible. There will be less weight in the ceiling of the cave, and the height of the cave will permit the cold air to leave the cave and go down the slope. When the snow cave is nearing completion, a ski pole is pushed through the roof for ventilation. The last man to go in will close the open entrance with a ready-made snow block. In this cave, the leader and his men will be well protected from the storm. The heat from their bodies and from candles will raise the temperature as they rest and wait for the storm to pass. This is what the Norwegians mean when they say, "Make the cold work for you." There are other types of snow shelters you can build. If a snowdrift is not available, you can build a snow trench. Or a tree pit shelter. or an igloo. These efforts are more examples of turning the enemies, the cold and the snow, into allies. So much for the subject of survival. How about movement? The most common methods of individual movement in the snow are snowshoes and skis. This Canadian shoe has a magnesium frame and is widely used. The British and Netherlands Marines use this type of shoe, which straps easily to your boot. And the Norwegians have this type, which uses their standard ski bindings. The disadvantages of the snowshoe are that you can't slide to make the best use of the snow. And snowshoes are tiring. They take a lot more effort than walking on hard ground. The Norwegians and the British and Netherlands Marines are primarily ski-borne. These are a pair of wooden Norwegian Army skis, used also by the British and Netherlands Marines. The U.S. Marines use these all-terrain standard military skis. Skiing is a skill that cannot be learned quickly.
But straighten out your arms. Use your arms. Okay, let's go. Stretch out your arms. Okay, use your skis. Remember, don't cross your skis.
It takes about 6 weeks to become reasonably proficient. On level terrain, well-trained ski troops carrying rifles and packs move faster than men with the same gear on snowshoes. When pulling an American Akio or a Norwegian Poke, skiers move slower. The rate of advance is substantially decreased when negotiating difficult terrain. Skiers can be towed at speeds of up to 25 kilometers per hour on suitable terrain and in good weather. The Swedish Bandwagon, or BV-202, and the later model, the BV-206, are used for the ski yoring. The BV-206 can pull 15 skiers, and it can carry 17 men between the front and rear cabs. The BV is a key vehicle in cold weather warfare in the mountains. It can go long distances over rugged terrain, but it makes an obvious track in the snow. In addition, the BV has the same limitation any other machine has in cold weather: breakdowns, resupply of parts, and the general cold weather operation and maintenance problems. The snow scooter is also used. It has a smaller profile and makes a little less noise than a BV. It is faster, but can pull only 2 skiers. It handles better at night and is good for reconnaissance, medical evacuation, and resupply. The most versatile machine for cold weather warfare operations is the helicopter. It can carry men and their equipment within weight limits. But if it's down for maintenance, or the weather is bad, you must always have an alternate plan. However, when it's working and the weather is flyable, and tactics permit, the helicopter can get you and your equipment there in a hell of a hurry. The enemy, the cold, can be made your ally. Through proper leadership, you can successfully learn to survive, to move, and to fight to your best advantage.